Well, hey there, idiots. Welcome back to Observe. In today's video, we're going to be analyzing the nonverbal communication of a few people, all centered around the channel Watcher. There's some stuff going on around that. More on that in just a second. Let's go ahead and roll the intro first. Okay, like I mentioned, the channel Watcher, for those of you who do not know, is a channel that does a number of different series of videos, not the least of which is their Supernatural Ghost Files video series, which I have featured here on the channel a couple of times. Ergo, doing this analysis here, it feels applicable. Now, Watcher has decided to leave their YouTube platform where they started, where they had all of their funding come from and all of their support, and move over to an individual paid-to-watch streaming platform. This is the video that they made in regards to that. I think that's enough of the backstory for that. We'll talk about this as they continue to talk about it themselves. Let's go ahead and dive into the video.
Alrighty. As sad as it is to say goodbye to YouTube, it's the right thing to do. If this is my life...
Gonna go ahead and pause here. So something that you will obviously notice is that I went through and I removed all of the background music that goes to this video. Now, this video that they released is very produced. It's something that has a lot of their very polished editing, and I tried to strip a bit of that back so we can hear and focus on their words and their nonverbal communication a little bit more, because the editing itself does push us in a specific emotional direction, and I don't want to have that be an influence on this video. So I've taken all of that out, and we're going to be able to make note of what they say and do nonverbally without the distraction, without as much distraction in regards to music and editing. So we're already seeing that they're kind of setting it up to be this more sit-down, casual style, which we have seen many times in various apology videos. Oftentimes in apology videos, this is done as a manipulation point to seem more down to earth. They're doing that here as well. It's not something that's a manipulation point as much, since it's just considered an update video, but there is a lot to this. We'll see more sets, we'll see more settings, we'll see more verbiage. Let's just go ahead and continue watching.
This is my last time on YouTube, then baby, what a life I've lived here on this platform.
I grew up on YouTube. All of my heroes were on YouTube. I learned how to be a human on YouTube. Taking a step away from it, it's just tough because I've always really loved and cared about the YouTube community, so it's hard to leave.
All right, I'm gonna go ahead and pause here. So we're hearing this pregnant pause, which is supposed to help us feel the emotional weight of what's being said. The words are being measured, everything along those lines. And then what we're hearing is that he's having difficulty with this decision. But what we're not seeing nonverbally is any form of emotional synchronization with that. It's still a fairly collected, presentable expression that he has. There's not any form of emotional seepage from that. So we're having difficulty understanding whether or not that this is actually a difficult decision. And what many people are curious about is this something that they're really having difficulty with in this transition period, or is it something that they're just trying to say we're having difficulty with this to smooth over the transition period? This is going to be a difficult video for me to make because I happen to be a fan of Shane and Ryan's video series on Watcher. So seeing them make this sort of decision, it's hard. We'll unpack it. Let's just keep watching.
My first YouTube video that I ever made was in 2012. It's so embarrassing, but I think it really encapsulates early YouTube, which is this like unfettered joy of just making and creating something that was in your head and sharing it with the world.
I just remember from like a young age, it was a way for me to feel like I had a purpose, or it was a way for me to find self-esteem. I guess when I'm making things, it's when I feel the most alive. And I think that's carried over into my adult life. And in a lot of ways, sometimes I look back and it feels like I haven't really even grown up. And I'm sure if you ask people about that, they probably would agree with me that I have not grown up.
I went to Northern Illinois University for 2 years because it felt very selfish and weird to want to go into film. And I was like, I got to do something responsible. I can't just do something that is fun. And then after 2 years of that, I was like, I'm really sad and I really don't. I was like, I guess it's worth maybe pursuing my, creative ambitions. So then I went to Columbia College in Chicago and studied editing. But even before that, when I was at Northern, I was still making a bunch of dumb little videos. Plenty of dumb little videos.
Myself, Shane, Steven,
I'm going to go ahead and pause here. So something that we can just kind of make note of verbally throughout this is this initial part is a very overt attempt to be able to relate to the audience, especially with this mindset that even Shane presents here of he's influenced to go to a college because that's what you should do, but then he decided not to and did his YouTube channel instead. And that's a very common theme within YouTubers themselves, and therefore a lot of viewers can relate to that feeling and that experience of being told to do a specific thing but wanting to fulfill your dreams, more or less. So Shane's doing that. They're all backing up on that. That's a little bit of a manipulation point here. We're able to see that they're wanting us to emotionally engage with their storyline to be able to then follow their next steps here of their journey. And while that would be conceptually okay, that would be something that many people would be okay getting on board with, as being like, yeah, I support this. The issue is the transition, the way it's carried out is very alienating for the audience themselves, and it has some very overt logical flaws with what they've presented to the generality of the internet as to their reasonings for this, as opposed to the reality of what working on YouTube really functions as. So as we continue through this, we'll talk about that and some of the insider sides of that perhaps the viewers might not be aware of, that it seems as though watchers relying on that inexperience from the viewer. And so we'll kind of cover that as that goes on through this video. Right now, we're going to go through and kind of hear the history of these three as their experience on YouTube grew and flourished into where it is today. Let's just watch. You'll see what I mean.
Steven, we all came from BuzzFeed. It was kind of like the formative years of our creative process.
I didn't really know how to make a video. I didn't know virality. I didn't understand the internet that well. So BuzzFeed for me was like college.
I had a great time there. I was never very good at sort of chasing like viral stuff. The stuff that I did find success with was stuff that I was very passionate about. And that was kind of hit or miss,
Yeah, we were working crazy hours trying to get the next cool hit video out, trying to make the next big thing. And that was the culture there. It was fun, but also intense.
Steven and myself made...
Gonna go ahead and pause here. So it's very rare for anybody to exist today that haven't heard of BuzzFeed on some level. Even if you're not aware that you've heard of them, you've likely taken a quiz by them or something along those lines. BuzzFeed is a very established internet name. So these three came from that. And what I find fascinating is that Shane in this part verbally says that he found success in the things that he was passionate about, which is a very common situation on YouTube, is that people who chase trends will oftentimes only be as successful as that trend is. And trends on the internet fly by at a million miles an hour. It's very difficult to keep up with trends on the internet. And what usually will make a sustainable, long-lasting, consistent YouTube channel is the passion of the creator behind it, which Shane touches on. He says, the things that I found success in were the things that I liked to do, that I was passionate for. And that's the beauty of YouTube, is that people, the viewers, will be able to watch a person behind a camera and see what they are passionate about. And oftentimes that passion will draw in other people who even have a light fascination with it. Or if they don't, they'll be like, this person's so passionate about it that I want to see what they're doing. And it's the person and it's the passion and the compassion around the content that is the draw. And that's such a beautiful aspect of YouTube, regardless of how oversaturated certain avenues are and the politics that get into YouTube and the algorithm that goes into that. What really boils down to it at its very core is that a person gets to make what they want to make, and that passion spreads to their community, and that garners more attention. And that's phenomenal, and that's a fairly unique business model to YouTube because of that very intimate and real-time connection with creator to audience. That doesn't exist anywhere else, and the least of all, it does not exist in television. television is extremely detached from their audience because there is no real-time commentary to it. And so that's something that they will harp on through this video, is that they're doing this for their audience, but what they've done in this inevitably is severed their communication with their lifeline, who is their audience. They have removed the ability to interact in the comments section. They have disqualified the ability to go to their memberships or Patreon because they're not lucrative enough. And so they've made it to where they've talked up their audience, but they've, in essence, muted their audience as well. So we're going to see a lot of these contrasting ideologies kind of emerge throughout this video that a lot of people are having a lot of difficulty with. Now, what a lot of people are curious on, is this a full team effort? Is this something to where perhaps some are pushing more for this shift than others? And perhaps we'll be able to see some of that come through non-verbally. It's going to be difficult to nail down an exact black or white answer, but we should be able to get a little bit more of a direction and understanding behind that, along with some of the behind the scenes as to what they're saying and the reality of it. So let's just watch.
Self made something called Worth It and Unsolved, respectively.
That was when I went from like, oh, this is the Asian kid in the BuzzFeed video, to like, oh, that's Stephen Lim. That's like the guy who hosts Worth It.
Luckily, I was, roped into Unsolved and was able to be in that.
There was a fire in all.
All right, going to go ahead and pause here. So many people on the Watcher series are there for Shane and Ryan and their dynamic. They do the Ghost Files, they do the Unsolved, and they have a pretty good on-camera dynamic. Steven is the person that many people are curious about if he's pushing this shift rather than Shane and Ryan. And so I'll be paying attention to their nonverbal communication throughout this to be able to see, are there any areas of possible desynchronization, specifically in Shane and Ryan's display of things, that might indicate some of this animosity that people are curious if it exists within their dynamic, or perhaps all three of them are really pushing for this rather nonsensical shift. Let's continue on through this. We'll gather as much information as we can and talk about it as we can.
Fire in all three of us. We had something to prove. We had a passion for making content and making it to a certain level of quality that would perhaps punch above its weight. And so we figured, okay, if we could make something for BuzzFeed that's like that, why couldn't we not bet on ourselves and then perhaps do the same thing at our own little shop? When the three of us huddled together around my little kitchen table in my apartment, we kind of wrote down the mission statement of just, we want to make a studio or a platform where we could make unscripted television caliber content on the internet. And to that point, nobody had quite done that. Full-blown developed shows had not been kind of a thing on YouTube to that point. Especially when we first started Unsolved and Worth It, and we wanted to continue that trend over here at Watcher.
I think the philosophy.
I'm going to go ahead and pause here. That in and of itself that's an iffy statement. Just in and of itself. There was YouTube Red, there was YouTube Premium, there was this series of people that's what they did, is they created television quality shows for YouTube. So the fact that they're trying to say, this wasn't really heard of, that in and of itself isn't necessarily fully true. And then they're also still they'll use this regularly throughout the video of being like, we wanted to create this quality product for the viewers, and that's one of our limiting factors, which is not, it's just simply not true. Even this channel in and of itself, I have that same drive. I want to be able to make a YouTube channel, a video series, something that could be aired on streaming platforms, something like that. That's my goal. But it's not something that I'm being required by you guys. You aren't watching this being like, man, I just need you to really get more lights. I need you to get a better camera. Even when Felix, PewDiePie, had his whole fiasco of people hammering on him to get a different camera, it's because he was using a very old webcam. Nobody was like, you know what, Felix, we need you to switch everything that you're doing and make it into television quality. That's what we want from you. Nobody wanted that. They just wanted to see his face clearly. And that mindset of the viewers just wanting to be able to see the people that they're there for is pervasive throughout YouTube. I have never seen a YouTube comment system that wanted the creator to create a television series for them. If anything, they wanted more of the creator, not of the editing. The editing from the creator side, from my side, for instance, I do all of my extra editing, all of the extra lighting, all of the extra graphics, because I enjoy it, and it just kind of gets to be a little bit of icing on top of the cake for you. If you're watching it, you get to see a little bit more cohesive of a video visually, but that's a gift. That's not why you subscribed here, and that's not why people subscribed to Watcher. It wasn't because their editing was stellar. It's because they liked the people that were involved. And so we'll see Watcher really harp heavily on their editing and their production quality as part of the reason that they need to make the shift. And even if that were the case, even if they were like, no, we just need that production quality in there, their reasoning for that was they needed more money to get that production quality. And that's simply not the case, especially with how fast technology itself is advancing. There's so much that an individual creator can produce due to the existence of technology in various forms. If you need a secondary camera angle, you don't need a secondary cameraman. You need a tripod, and you can add stuff in editing. Or if you want to get super crazy about having a mobile secondary camera angle, you get an automated slider. All of these things are affordable in the realm of film creation as opposed to paying a full staff. So there are solutions. It just takes creativity and a little bit of extra work. But what we're hearing from Watcher is that they're looking at these solutions as just not even an option. They just need to have more money to throw at it. And the money really does boil down to the hub of this video, which we'll get to. So let's watch that and see how that plays out.
The philosophy of Watcher is us very earnestly exploring something without much irony. Granted, we're like when we're doing our Ghost Hunts, it's a jokey channel. But I think underneath it all, there's like a genuine interest in stuff and a passion for exploring, you know, the stuff that we're interested in.
I'm so proud of
that verbiage is interesting to me, where they're talking about one of their most successful series, which would be the Ghost Hunters, the Ghost Files, where they're hunting supernatural phenomenon in general. It's one of their most successful series on their channel, and even in that, Shane's admitting that like he thinks that perhaps behind the showmanship of that perhaps there is actual genuine interest, which is a little indicator to us as the audience that on some level, some of what we've been watching from them has been performative, even maybe more pervasively than what we initially thought, to where Shane has to imagine a world that perhaps they were interested in these things. And that, to me, is a little bit of a low-level verbal red flag as to what could be indicated from that, the implications of that. But they don't really expand on it anywhere else in this, so we can't say that, oh, they're just passionlessly trying to make content to pander to the masses. And they don't try to say that, so I'm not going to hang too much on that. But that little pattern that's there does push me in that direction. So far, there hasn't been a lot non-verbally to go off of, because there's not a lot of non-verbal visuals to go off of. But already we're seeing so many difficulties centered around their verbal patternings and the logic behind these decisions that it's making the nonverbals supplementary to what we're already understanding. But we'll continue through that. There are some more nonverbals that do unpack here, and we will continue to talk about these behind the scenes reality as opposed to what they're presenting to you. So let's watch.
Of what we've built here at Watcher. My proudest moments have been being able to hire incredible people. It's like growing our staff from 3 to 6 to 10 to 20, 25. I'm proud of.
Pausing there. Their channel was, at the point of them releasing this video, around 3 million subscribers, which is roughly 3 times the size of this channel here. And this channel here, I hire teams for things like taxes or business deals, brand deals, things like that. I'll work with people with that. But as far as the production of the videos itself, the largest the team has gotten has been 3 people. And you could still produce that. So even if we're taking that logic from that, perhaps you add another person on, and that would be, 4 people for a channel this size, roughly 700 to 800,000 subscribers. Then if you multiply that by 3 to 4, that still only equals 12 to 15 people at maximum. And that's to produce a full quality, everything inclusive, your own original assets, everything like that, production. And so the fact that they're using 25 people to pull this off lets the business side of us know that they are overstaffed for what they're trying to produce. And again, all that it takes is creative problem solving to achieve many of the same effects that they use individual hires for. And so what we're now understanding is that perhaps this isn't so much about what they're delivering to the audience, because there are creative, if not more time and energy consuming solutions. There are those solutions. What they're more concerned about is saving their own energy and just hiring more people to do the thing that can be done with far less people to the same degree of quality. You can be approached by studios, you could be approached by separate entities in regards to that quality without having a staff that large. It is fully possible. But this factor is one of the primary factors that many people are noticing, is that they're working with 25 individual people with full pay scales, and that is a huge financial requirement. A solution for which, if they wanted to actually find a solution that is beneficial to the audience and not just for themselves, the solution for which is to cut down their staffing and work with more bare bones and creativity. So there are some red flags that are popping up here, and we're seeing that very clearly, even with their own admittance here with their overstaffing of their team. Let's continue watching.
The fans and the community that we've fostered.
Maybe that's the best part. The tangible effect of it is like you're out in public and people are like, hey, wow, you know, we watched a lot of your content during a tough time and it really helped us. That's always really nice. Especially when we do our like live shows, you notice that it's very fascinating. The audience that we've attracted are also weirdos in the most positive sense.
I'm very happy with the progress that we've made over here at Watcher over these past.
This part rings a little bit hollow for me considering their move. Shane's trying to talk about how much their audience means to them, and that's very true. For anybody who's on YouTube, the audience is the make or break it. If you don't have an audience, if you don't have a subscriber base, you will not be a YouTuber. If you do, then you can be a YouTuber, but there is that symbiotic relationship that does exist. The creator has to create things that's engaging and that the audience might be interested in, and the audience enables the creator to do something that would be their dream job. They get to be their own boss. They get to be their own producer. They get to do all of these things themselves, and that symbiotic relationship that exists is genuinely extremely crucial to the entirety of the YouTube experience and what makes it unique. And Watcher, from what we're seeing, looks at that, looks at the audience interaction, and looks at that very vital portion of it and says that that's not essential. That's not important. We're going to abandon that. We're going to make it to where that whole faction does not have the opportunity to genuinely interact with us anymore. We're moving that to a fully separate streaming service where they don't have comments. They don't have ratings. They don't have any of these things that are the genuine raw reaction of the people watching. And that's one of the big issues that phased out and is still continually phasing out the normalized television format, is this disconnect between creation and audience. And for some reason, that's what Watcher is searching after, is that disconnect between creation and the audience it's being made for. It's a fascinating thing. Wouldn't be an ordeal if they weren't verbatim saying that that's not what they were doing in this video. Let's watch.
Over these past 4.5 years, but it feels like we are just at the point where we've hit a bit of a ceiling in terms of what YouTube is able to offer.
More than 50% of our business.
I want to pause that there. Hit a ceiling as to what YouTube is able to offer is one of the most ludicrous statements. It's not a limitation of YouTube. It is a limitation of the creators. If you want an example of the opposite side of this coin, look at somebody, regardless of controversy, regardless of personal opinion, look at Jimmy, Mr. Beast. He is now one of the largest, he's the second largest YouTube channel, if I remember correctly, the second largest YouTube channel on YouTube as an individual creator with millions of subscribers and doing videos that are phenomenally broad. The production quality is enormous, building entire facilities, buying out entire other facilities. The possibilities of YouTube are actually endless depending on the creators. So for them to say, YouTube just wasn't really cutting it for us, it lets us know that their reasonings for that aren't going to be the reasonings because that's not the reality of the situation. There's more to this, and they continue to unpack this in a very, it's just fascinating. Let's keep watching.
Our business is run by advertising. We are relying on ads to make money, to pay the bills, to run this office, to make beautiful content for all of you guys out there. Unfortunately, over time, the deals that we were getting in 2019, 2020 are looking a lot different than they are today. We're making something for two audiences. We're making it for the fans, all of you out there, and we're also making it to please the advertisers. It's difficult to make the stuff that we want to make and also then appeal to the advertisers as well.
It costs a certain amount to make.
This falls flat on many people's ears because of the way that advertisements function on YouTube. From a YouTuber to the audience revealing some of it, there are some advertisers that do request you put in an entire video, and they want you to tailor the entire video to their advertisement. They want what would be considered and called a dedicated ad video. Those are not common, and the larger YouTubers you get, the less and less common they are. What is far more common in this is to have an ad segment, which I'm fairly certain. Let me know in the comments below if this is brand new to you, but I'm fairly certain that about 98% of you are aware that the ad segments is the common way that a YouTuber will sponsor their video. That's what companies are in search of, is anywhere between a 45 to 3-minute segment of a video. So with watchers saying that they have to tailor their videos to either the advertisers or to the audience, and they're being pulled in two different directions, is them blowing smoke at you. Because from personal experience and from the overwhelming data pool that is the rest of YouTube, that's not how the advertisements work. They have to tailor maybe 3 minutes of a full video towards the advertisers. The rest of it just has to make sure that you're not being a super controversial person in it, which if watchers having a difficulty with that, then the question is, well, what kind of content are they wanting to produce that's so controversial that advertisers won't even pay for a 60-second segment on a 15-minute video? And again, all of this continually will boil back around to money and the implications thereof. And I think that that's fairly revealing as to the mindset of these three, of the watcher company. It's all centered around money. It's not centered around creative freedom. It's not centered around wanting to deliver a quality product to the audiences. That's all possible with where they are right now. It just takes creativity. What it boils down to is they want more money for what they're doing, which, yes, is a business move for sure, but there's some nuances that go into this decision business-wise that they just seem to have ignored. And either one, they fully ignored it, or two, there's an aspect of a monetary deal that they have made with somebody else extraneous that we're not being allowed information on. Maybe their channel was bought out for a large sum of money, and that was their big reason to shift from the YouTube channel that made it possible for them to do what they're doing to a streaming service. Perhaps there's some sort of solution like that that's in there, but from what they're presenting, their narrative, it does not make sense. The only thing that makes sense is that they want more money for what they're doing, and so they've made this decision. And it's a horribly done business decision. Let's watch.
To make content in the way that we do it. We try to put things on the screen that we feel adheres to a certain level of quality that you would find on, say, a Netflix or something like that. But in doing so, it does cost a certain amount. Like, for example, a Ghost Files episode. First, we have to travel to the location itself. We have to pay the location fee. We have to pay freelance staff that comes to help us shoot that when we're shooting in the studio.
Now we're getting, okay, so first two steps. Got to travel to the place. Yeah, genuine. All YouTubers will pay for their travel to get to places unless it's like a brand sponsorship. Sometimes they get their travel paid. But yes, for the most part, every single YouTuber that wants to go to a place to do a video will buy the tickets to go to that place. Not a big deal. Everybody does that. And then along with that, you got to pay for, sometimes you have to pay for the location. Also very plausible. That varies indefinitely for locations. Some popular locations are more expensive. Some are free. You can just ask for one of their closed days and use it then. There are solutions for that. Then what it gets around to where I start having the beef with their situation so far, the first 2 points are okay, if a little lackluster. Then they get to, oh, well, then we need an entire crew to film these videos. That's where it starts to stray even from the YouTube mindset of the creator can be creative and find solutions, creative solutions for these, to, well, we just needed to really hire a bunch of people to do the things that we ourselves can do. If you've watched one of their series, they have graphical inlays, which you can get. You can figure out how to customize assets. You can learn yourself. Even DaVinci Resolve, one of the world's leading video editing softwares, the free version alone has so many solutions that can get you to a very, very similar production quality. If not exact same, extremely similar for pennies on the dollar. And so for them to say, well, we needed to hire in all these people, they didn't need to. If they wanted a secondary camera angle, find a tripod and get an automated slider. If they wanted something that follows, use one of the people that's not on screen and follow along with, or find a creative solution that doesn't require a following camera angle. Or if you need a following camera angle, mount it to the people themselves. There are so many creative solutions to get the results that they want that don't require them to make all of these financial expenditures happen. But they're not willing to sacrifice on that. They want the money to continue to flow through. So it's not a matter of whether or not they can, it's a matter of whether or not they feel like it. And that's not what they're presenting. They're trying to present that they're strong-armed into this because of their pure production quality. And that's not the case. So there are solutions. They're not willing to find them. Let's continue watching.
In the studio, we have to pay for the studio to shoot the actual episode in. Then we have to pay for post. Before that, we also have to do the pre-production of the episode. And when you add that all up, we're talking about an end of a season that costs hundreds of thousands of dollars. I'm not sitting here complaining that is the bed we've made.
Gonna pause here. This is an important facet to be able to point out as well, which we'll touch more on this as the video goes on, that hundreds of thousands per season. That is a pretty beefy expenditure for a YouTube series. Absolutely. No problem with that. It can also be funded by a channel of that size. For those of you who are watching and don't know, if you want to get an average, very loose average, but a reliable average as to how much a channel is making, look at it as to every 1,000 views that they get, they make roughly $1. That's a pretty lackluster average there, but it's reliable enough. So if you see a channel that makes 20,000 views on a video, that still makes them $20. But they're not making 20,000 views a video, they're making roughly 1 million to 4 million views per video. And that, doing that math, is a substantial chunk of money. And that's just from your base level, should not rely on it, advertiser, the mid-roll kind of adverts that you see on a YouTube video. That's what that's raking in at what would be argued the minimum. Along with that, they have their Patreon. Now, the Patreon is where it gets crazy. Their Patreon, they have roughly 13,000 patrons on there at the point of filming this video. Who knows what will happen to that number as this horrible business decision moves forward. But at the point of having this, they have roughly 13,000 patrons, and they have a minimum patron level of $7.50, more or less $7. We'll just say $7. So with that alone, 13,000 people donating $7 a month, it equals up to close to $100,000 a month in revenue exclusively from Patreon. We'll be gentle and be like, it's only $90,000 a month from Patreon alone, not including what YouTube itself makes. On top of that, they're saying that they had brand deals. They were receiving brand deals, which those brand deals are, I guarantee you, anything from $1,000 to $20,000 per brand deal with that channel size. So with that in mind, if they're having a brand deal on each of these videos, maybe only 4 brand deals a month, to put it very gently, so they've got such massive pools of money coming from various areas that they can tap into and have as resources reliably, but they're still trying to paint this out that the issue for them is that the advertisers are being too needy and the costs are being too high. Both of which, as we can now see, is extremely untrue. Logically speaking, there's not a need for nonverbal communication in this. Just numbers speaking, it's untrue. This was an extremely selfish business move, not at all tailored towards the community that they're trying to say it was tailored towards. This was exclusively a decision either based out of monetary or based out of ego. And the chances are is that it was a hand-in-hand ego and monetary. They're no longer YouTubers. They make a show on a streaming platform. It's an ego boost. And the monetary-wise, I think that they're in for a very, very harsh awakening as they realize that so many of these people, very arguably loyal, avid subscribers who can't afford streaming services, are going to, by force, leave them. And that hollows out all of their backing. That makes it to where advertisers who are viewing them and want to offer them money to create content for this massive audience that they have created, they will no longer want to offer money to them because they have alienated that audience. And further down that pipeline, again, streaming platform does not have audience interaction available to it. You can't go and comment on Netflix how you feel about the show so that the producer can see it. That doesn't exist. That's what they're gunning for, is that sort of disconnect. Meanwhile, holding on to their YouTube channel as a possible point, their social medias as possible points of audience interaction, while the actual tangible real-time reaction that they need to succeed has been fully removed by their own choice. They're shooting themselves in the foot. It's a horrible business decision. And again, it makes me extremely upset because I enjoyed their content. There are the obvious difficulties here. Let's keep watching.
Everyone has different missions they're marching towards on YouTube. Ours was to make a television show. And, over time, you start to realize, like, hey, maybe television shows aren't meant for YouTube. Perhaps we should find a different place that's better suited to the content that we're making.
That's an extremely sorry excuse. One, their goal initially was to make a television show. But the reason that they didn't, which they're not going to say here, the reason that they didn't is because making a television show, there are endless hoops that you have to jump through to be able to get to the point of making a television show as just a general everyday person. Even a person who went to school and got all of the degrees and experience in that, there are still so many hoops to jump through to get to that point. So instead of going through all of that effort, which they likely would not have made it through because it's extremely intense and it's very, very biased, and there's so many things that you have to do to get to that point, instead of going that route, they went the YouTube route, which allowed them to build their business from the ground up, how they wanted, when they wanted, where they wanted. Beauty of YouTube. That's what they chose because it made the most sense. So what they're then in essence conveying to us, the audience, is we were never anything more than a stepping stone for them. That no matter how much you poured into their content, if you watched their videos all the way through, if you clicked on their ads, if God forbid you were a patron to them and you've donated your own money to them each month, they only ever viewed that as a stepping stone to making something to where you couldn't do those things. You can't interact with them. You can't have that connection with them. It doesn't make sense, and it's extremely rude and hurtful and harmful to the people, the audience that made it happen. And this is an extremely tone-deaf reasoning for it. So let's watch her.
That we're making and can support the dollar amount that we're putting into each of these episodes so that we're not constantly running around trying to find sources of revenue to support the model.
We work from the other direction here, which is like we start first by looking at what we want to say and think about and talk about, and that's always informed our content, which is why I think our content doesn't necessarily always like trend. We've trended quite a few times, okay? But that's never, it's never our goal. And I think by that token, YouTube has never been like the perfect fit for us.
All that being said, we have realized that
pausing there, they're just making a note of like this weird contradiction of like, oh, we're not making enough money, but we don't want to make content that will make money on YouTube. I get that for sure. 100%. Make the content that you want to make. And if it doesn't make the same money that you want it to make, the response to that is to not shoot the content in the foot and say, well, now it's no longer useful. It's to change your approach to making the content. Cut back your expenditures. Make it to where you can get the same concept across, but without all of the frill. Because again, people are there for that. And if you do that, If you make content that people will like, there is reliable, repeatable, very tangible evidence that you can grow so much further than a studio will ever let you do. Again, prime example, Mr. Beast. So there is a solution. There is a possibility. Every YouTuber that is a YouTuber has run into this same issue on some level. They want to have an idea, but they can't make that idea happen, so they gotta get creative. From what I'm hearing, Watcher just doesn't want to get creative anymore. So let's keep watching.
That it would be great if we could find a way to rely less on advertising, not make it such a big part of our business. So
Patreon, memberships, do them. Diversify your income. Basic Business 101. However, they looked at Patreon and memberships. They don't even acknowledge those as options in here because they are the solution. But they looked at those two options and said, no, we're not going to do that. We're not going to rely on that. We're not even going to mention that we're getting close to $100,000, if not more, a month off of that. Let's not mention those. We're going to say that the only solution to this is to shift our entire YouTube channel, the future of it, to an external streaming service that is required you pay just to watch their YouTube channel. That is, in essence, an overglorified, ego-stroking version of a Patreon. That is all that Watcher is right now, which is disappointing because, again, I like these people. This is not what I wanted to see them do. I don't know. Let's keep watching.
So we've been working over the past few months and years, like how can we make this business more sustainable? How can we make something where we can make the things that we want to make for all of you guys and not be worried about all the other forces that are here? In terms of where this company is going and where I believe that we can be the most successful, YouTube is no longer the place for that.
Now, Steven's the only one that says this verbatim like that. And a lot of people are like, is Steven the one that's really pushing this? Is Steven the one that's like, no, YouTube can't be it, and Shane and Ryan are just kind of having to go along because Steven's such an important portion of the Watcher company? There's that possibility. You know, the fact that Steven is the one who's saying the stupidity of like, oh, well, YouTube has just run its course for us. We can't use YouTube anymore for what we needed it for, so we need to move to an unknown, never used streaming platform that costs everybody to watch money to watch the same content that they got on YouTube before. Many people are concerned by that. There's a portion here in this video that we're about to get to where all three of them are sitting on the couch, and we'll be able to possibly see some interpersonal dynamics with the nonverbal in regards to that. But just the fact that he himself has verbatim said that YouTube is no longer, YouTube is in essence useless to them, it lets me know that at least one person on that team who's fairly influential is looking at this completely incorrectly, and arguably just in a lazy way. They're looking at YouTube lazily, which is not the MO for YouTube. For those of you who are interested in starting your own YouTube channel or have, or know people that have, anybody who finds success in it, it's something that you have to work at relentlessly. Sometimes you can make a viral video and it'll get lucky and you'll be able to explode into having subscribers. But even then, if you do that, you still have to follow up. You still have to do work, hard work to get it to succeed. And that seems to be something that Watcher as a company is unwilling to do. I think that a lot of their subscribers, a lot of their audience is seeing that, picking up on that, and deciding that this is indeed where their support ends, because it's been made horrifically clear that the support that they're offering doesn't matter to the Watcher team. Let's keep watching.
For anybody who's watched or supported us to this point, truly, thank you. The goal was always to make television caliber quality content, and not just for YouTube, but for you guys. I guess we just hope you guys follow us this one last time.
Two are very...
There we go. So there's that first half. Again, hope you follow us this one last time. That statement alone lets us know that on some level, Watcher was expecting some level of backlash for this business move. Hope you follow us one last time. It doesn't It doesn't really exude confidence. And now they're going to start unpacking the actual Watcher platform itself with all three of them there present on the couch. So this first half of this mini doc that they made is just them trying to emotionally win you over towards their decision of opening this, which, to be very clear, I am in full support of Watcher moving and making content for a streaming platform. That's exciting. That's genuinely a thrilling opportunity for people who had nothing and started on the internet with nothing, could build themselves up an empire big enough to start doing something like that. That's beautiful. But where I start having issues is that they're, instead of acknowledging the importance, not even the importance, the vitality and necessity of the audience that they created here, and then using that and supplementing with the streaming, perhaps making both platforms active. Instead of doing that, which would require more work, they have, in essence, told every single subscriber that could not afford to pay that they did not matter. And so for them to say, you're not worthy of being one of our audience members unless you can afford our payment system, is very indicative of their character themselves. And I'm hoping beyond hope that these people, that Shane, Ryan, and Steven, are not looking at this and being that overtly selfish and rude and more or less disgusting of people consciously, that perhaps it is something that is like, oh, well, we had a brand deal and we really wanted to stick to that, or there was just an opportunity and we're really excited, and it's more innocently done. What I'm afraid of is that this was a calculated move, as we've kind of gathered here, that this was calculated, it was anticipated, and despite all of that, knowing that this was a horrible decision to make in regards to the audience that made it possible for them to get to where they were, that they looked at that and decided that the value that that offered wasn't worth it for them. So let's watch the second half. We'll see about the nonverbal interactions between them all.
Our very own independent streaming service, Watcher. Watcher is an ad-free, independent streaming service dedicated to providing you guys the television caliber content that you know and love. But you're probably wondering, how is it going to be?
Non-verbally speaking, they're all sitting with their legs crossed. That's neither here nor there. There's a lot of research that goes into the direction of folding your legs. Some people will say that if you fold your legs in a specific way, like say you're folding your legs and you cross your body blocked off to the person next to you, there's the possibility that there is some level of animosity between those two people because there's a physical blockage literally existing between the two of them. There is that possibility. Since there's three people on a couch and all of them are likely going to be crossing their legs to save some space, a lot of that reliability starts to fade away. If you're in a situation where perhaps it's more like a table setting and there's not a need to save space, anything along those lines, then looking at those tells contextually is a lot more reliable. In this, I wouldn't say that because Shane and Steven are folding their legs in a way that blocks off Ryan, who then has to kind of figure out his, like, I wouldn't lean into that side of the nonverbal communication too much, considering the physical limitations of the space that they're in. But just wanted to make note of that in case you did pick up on that. Let's keep watching.
Is it going to be different than the YouTube experience?
The new streamer, I think, is a place that reflects what our content is. High quality series in season form, beautifully organized, ad free. It's what we were destined to be.
First of all,
Okay, pausing there. I don't know that the Watcher team is fully aware of this, but there's this really novel feature on YouTube called playlists. You can organize all of your footage beautifully into clickable, organized, visually appealing rows of content that people can then go in and look at, and it's free for both the creator and the audience. So that reasoning behind it of the organization, that's not it. Obviously, there's solutions around that, which then lets us know by simple logical deduction here that this was an ego-stroking matter. They felt that their content deserved a full streaming platform that looks all sorts of polished. Who has time for playlists that do the exact same thing when you can create your own paid streaming service that looks different? Because really, in essence, that's all that the difference is visual. There's not any difference between uploading your content, putting it into a playlist, as opposed to uploading your content to a streaming service, which then puts it into a streaming service playlist. It's just a matter of effort. And again, this seems like it's an ego stroke rather than an actual business decision. So let's see.
We're destined to be.
First of all, bigger and better content.
Yeah, I mean, I'm excited to improve Ghost Files. I mean, I'm very happy with how the show has been, produced so far, but the streamer is going to give us an opportunity to really add to it from a format standpoint, but we'll also be able to take bigger swings and go international. Like we're going to the UK and we're going to Scotland. Also, the more resources we have, the more time we could focus on making the show better. And every season of that show, I want it to be better than the last. And I'm
pausing again. Okay, so now talking about the production quality again. What they're saying is that what they need to up their production quality is money. And again, as we have already covered here, they don't need money to up their production quality. One, their production quality is great. They do a really phenomenal job at Ghost Files. If you haven't watched one of those episodes, go and check it out. They have props, they have sets, they have graphics, and it looks fantastic. None of which did the audience ask for or demand. The audience just was there for them to go and look at these creepy places that could be haunted. That's all that the audience wanted. But they wanted to do all of these extra things. They didn't need to. So that means, in essence, that they could have found cheaper, more financially reliable solutions for these wants that they have to produce the content and then save the money that they could then spend to do things like go overseas. Again, from what I've seen from their Watcher videos, I don't see a need for more than the 2 cast members who were YouTubers. And as many of you who are YouTubers, you're kind of like a jack of all trades. You have to figure out how to use your camera. You have to figure out the editing software. You have to figure out the audio. You have to learn all of these things, which makes you fairly useful on a set. So with 2 YouTubers who have been at this for a very long time, if those 2 combined with maybe 2 other people, a sound person and a videographer, if those 2 can't get the same quality as what they're seeing here, then that's a creativity issue, not a staffing issue, and not a monetary issue. Meanwhile, their solution to this is that they're going to tell all of their audience members, many of whom can only watch for free because that's where we are financially. Many people can't just be like, yeah, dude, I'll just another subscription service that exclusively has 1 channel on it. The subscription service, which they'll cover here in a bit, is half the cost, almost half the cost of Netflix, which, yeah, that's like half the cost of Netflix. Netflix has hundreds and arguably thousands of different video formatted entertainment content on it that warrants, I think that Netflix is charging too much. That's a different video. Warrants their charge per month. Watcher is 1 channel making a couple different kinds of content of the same people, and they want to charge about half as much as Netflix already is for a teeny tiny fraction of the content. That's an overinflated sense of self that Watcher's walking into this with, that I think they're probably, to their horror, finding out many people don't hold that overinflated sense of self to them. Let's watch.
and I'm very excited for season 3, which you guys will see on the streamer.
The advent of this streamer has allowed me,
Which you guys will see on the streamer. And there's a little bit of a contempt expression mixed in there as the corner of his mouth is lifted up, and perhaps a little bit of activity in the corner of that nose as well. So at least contempt, we're seeing a level of moral or intellectual superiority. There's something that Ryan knows or is feeling that we're not privy to, or that slips out. The disgust could be in there as well. I don't believe that Ryan himself feels that people are going to shift over to the streamer, but there's more into this, so let's just keep watching.
has allowed me to bring the gang back together.
That's true.
Adam.
Your pals.
Andrew, the old friends from Worth It, and we're going to be launching the spiritual successor, which is going to be called Travel Season.
Are you excited to work with Steven again?
Yeah. After 12 seasons of Worth It, it feels great to make something that is very similar and based on a lot of those experiences, but we get to dispense with all the stuff that we don't like.
So if you want to catch that, you can watch it on...
I'm having difficulty figuring out this weird delineation that they're making between how the streaming service that they've created allows them to make content that's different than what they can make on the YouTube channel. For them to say, well, I mean, the streamer just made it to where we could do anything we wanted, no bars held. I'm genuinely so confused what YouTube was limiting them with. And then if they're trying to say, well, the advertisers didn't want it, advertisers are extremely lax with what your content can be as long as it's not horribly controversial or saying very overtly hateful or disgusting things. Advertisers just want you to make a video that will get numbers because, frankly speaking, all that advertisers really care about is clicks. They only want to know if they're going to make a lot of money off of this YouTuber that they're investing in. For the most part, they're not going to care what the content itself is as long as it beneficially pushes people towards their product. So that just lets us know, as a viewer from logical processing, it can't be that. They're saying that it cannot be that. It has to be something else, which again pushes us back around to money and ego. But let's keep watching.
On May 31st, it's going to be a full 6-episode season, and you can watch it all, if you remember, on the streamer.
And not only will there be new, fresh shows, we're going to put it up to the members to resurrect a show from the past. There are a lot of shows that maybe didn't do phenomenally on YouTube that would be performing perfectly fine on a streamer.
What a weird, wonderful idea.
What a weird, wonderful idea that would be.
I'm excited about the prospect of bringing
That statement, that whole phrasing in and of itself is, I think, an underlier of their entirety of their concept here. Is that they wanted, like, even perhaps this concept of, we made a video series that didn't do well on the channel, which means that the audience that they created, that they collected, that amassed together an appreciation of their content, looked at that and was like, it's not really it, fam. Which is a very raw, real, applicable, coveted kind of reaction to your creations, because it's real time. It allows you to adjust real time. They looked at that and heard that, and instead of being like, maybe this idea wasn't worth it, they looked at it and said, maybe the people looking at it didn't know what they wanted, so instead, we're going to strong-arm this content into their faces and make them pay for it instead. And it would function really well then, because it wouldn't be determined by views. It would be determined whether or not a person has already paid for our content, which devalues the entire experience of the viewer. It makes it to where no longer do they have a voice. They're just a number. They're just a dollar sign. And that's what it seems as though Watcher's move was here. And that's gross to me. Let's keep watching.
of bringing on some new talent, some new faces, and making content around them, and being able to shape some shows that don't always involve us is something I'm really excited about. And we get to maybe bring back a little blue guy.
I mean, yeah, I imagine he'll pop in.
Yeah,
Whether you like it or not.
that's fair. But all this to say, you'll still occasionally see us on YouTube. We're going to post trailers for our shows there. We're going to have the season premieres of all of our series on there. But if you want to watch the full seasons of all of our content, the streamer will be the exclusive home for all of that starting May 31st.
Steven, talk about money.
Yeah, what's this price?
You can become a member of Watcher for $5.99 a month or $59.99 a year.
We want to keep the price low enough where anybody and everybody is able to afford it, but it also has to support the things that we do here. So that was the number that just made the most sense for the streamer.
And look, you can.
I'm going to go ahead and pause here because Shane's about to say something. There's going to be a little pop of stuff that happens here. $5.99 a month is a phenomenal tier on Patreon. That's a great tier to set on Patreon or memberships to do exactly what they're doing here. However, what it does is it makes it optional. Patreon does not need advertisers. Advertisers don't care about Patreon, they care about YouTube. You can put up fully ad-free videos on Patreon. All that it requires you to do in your videos is take out the ad segment and suddenly it's an ad-free video. If somebody pays X amount, they can see the ad-free video if they want to. However, if they don't have the financial ability to do that, they can watch the ad video on YouTube. That's the beauty of the symbiotic relationship between Patreon and YouTube. where does the necessity of a streaming platform come into this? If the price is going to be the same and the flexibility is going to be existent for the viewers, what's the need to stronghand and force viewers to exclusively pay for a streaming service for the same content they got anyways, if it isn't exclusively for ego and money, and perhaps even just more so ego, because again, they can do all of this through Patreon. They can do all of this even more intuitively through memberships. But they're not acknowledging that as an option. They're not even hinting at that as an option. But it is, and it is the solution that they were looking for, but it doesn't have the shiny name tag on it of being on a streaming service. So there's all of that issue to begin with. Now we're going to hear Shane mention the opportunity of account sharing for their platform, and let's watch the other two's reaction to that.
You can share it, with your friends.
That's true.
What are we gonna do?
Keep your eyes glued on all of our social channels.
So Shane says you could share it with your friends, which that's what people do with streaming services because they're a joke anyways. Nobody wants to pay all of the money per month just to watch some shows, so a lot of people share accounts. And so Shane brings that up, which lets me know that perhaps in Shane's functioning of things, we're seeing maybe he does understand that this monetary issue is going to be an issue, that there are going to be subscribers that are like, I can't do that. And so he's like, well, I mean, you could share it. He's not giving. He's not going to be like, you know what, actually, yeah, terrible idea. We're not going to do this. But he is trying to make some form of compromise and saying you can share it. And the other two do not at all support that statement. You see Ryan close himself off, sitting in a very open style, and then he shifts from being fairly open, closes off, and does a little laugh, which is uncomfortable, doesn't fully reach his eyes. It's not genuine, and he says, yeah, I suppose so, something along those lines. And then they just try to blaze right on by that. So that lets us know that there is perhaps some financial contention between the three there. There might be some understanding within them that this is just a monetary move, this is just an ego move, and it doesn't actually have anything to do with the subscribers themselves, and that sort of concept might exist and it's not fully agreed upon, which a lot of people are catching on to. And I'm not super certain that Ryan isn't on board with the shift all the way over to Watcher. Like, I'm thinking that perhaps it is Steven and Ryan that want to make this shift, and Shane is a little less driven to do that, because in reality, again, as we've said, this move cuts their flexibility. It cuts their support. It removes their audience. It alienates them from any other creator that they had prior bonds with. This is a horrible business decision, and perhaps Shane is catching on to that on some small level, but it's not overt. So let's keep watching.
Channels will be announcing some sweet opportunities to win merch, a free annual subscription, and a bunch of other wacky stuff from us. For those of you that sign up before May 31st, because we are going to have a little bit of a beta period, which will be launching today, actually.
Right now. You
Right
can sign
now.
up right now.
As of today, the release of this video, April 19th.
So if you want to become a member right now, you can.
Pausing here, Ryan and Shane are both regularly checking in with Steven. That's a power move right there. Steven is the one who has the answers to this, ergo Ryan and Shane checking in with this information side of things, which then pushes me to believe that perhaps Steven is somebody who is spearheading this on some level. If Ryan and Shane, the show runners, the forefronts, people know Watcher because of Ryan and Shane largely, if those two are the ones checking in with Steven, then that lets me know that perhaps Steven is pushing this, which many people have said, and there has been overwhelming evidence that Steven is living a life of luxury, and that this might be just more enabling of him to continue this life of luxury that he's living. And people are worried that perhaps Steven is the one who's really pushing for this move because he's just money hungry at this point. And at this, I mean, just going off of the small nonverbal cues that we're seeing here with them checking in with him, he's definitely the one that's in charge of this shift. or at least has the information around it. This isn't a guaranteed that this is all Steven's idea, but at least on some level, he has more answers and knowledge about this shift than Ryan and Shane do, which lends us to believe that he probably has more control and influence in it than Ryan and Shane do as well. Fascinating aspects. Let's watch the rest of this and we'll wrap up.
Now you can actually go to our description. You can click on the link somewhere in the video, but it's just watchyourtv.com. Super easy.
That's right. WatchYourTV.com.
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 Watch your TV.
Watch your TV.
Watch your TV. Watch Watcher on your TV.
WatchYourTV.com.
In all seriousness, we really couldn't be more excited for you guys to join us on this next chapter, hopefully. We'd love for you guys to come along with us. But at the same time, this is our final goodbye to YouTube. And, you know, if it's our goodbye to you, I hope it's not. But if it is, I do want to say thank you for supporting us.
Interesting here. So Ryan is now verbatim saying, we're leaving you behind regardless of whether or not, and that's fully devaluing the importance, even the necessity of the audience involvement thus far. Steven does a little sign-off thingy with a goodbye, staged, not very emotionally set. Meanwhile, on the other side, we see Shane do a reposturing, and he does a pretty substantial lip compression in there along with that reposturing, which the reposturing is further closing himself off. Combined with the lip compression lets me know that there is, on some level, even if it's subconscious, a negative reaction, a negative emotional reaction to what is being said there. I think that Shane has issues with this. I think that Shane is not super fully on board with this shift as much as he's having to present in these videos, as is kind of indicated by his nonverbal communication. There's only 23 seconds left. We'll watch that and then we'll talk.
For supporting us all along the way.
Your viewership has allowed us to do all these wonderful things that we've done these past 4 years. And we hope that you'll come along for the ride.
And help us continue to build.
Yeah.
Build this thing out even bigger. That's the hope, at least. But either way, it's been fun. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Okay. Shane again checks in with Steven at the end there with his thank you. If you're watching Shane throughout this, there's not happiness existent on his face. We're seeing action in the glabella area. We're seeing the eyebrows being lowered and drawn together. This could be in concern, could be in that in regards to the general vein of emotion of anger. We're seeing a nervous laugh from Ryan, and throughout that, we're seeing a consistency of neutrality from Steven throughout all of this. So in case it hasn't been made very clear throughout this video, I think that this move by Watcher was abysmal. I don't for a second buy that this move, this shift was done for the benefit of the viewers. I'm super disappointed. I loved their content. I thought it was beautifully produced, and to see them make this decision while fully discrediting very present, existent, and better solutions for their issues, and say that the only solution to this was to start their own streaming platform, felt very manipulative and it's overall wrong. I do not know how Shane and Ryan and Steven can recover from this, because even if they do come back to YouTube after this, people now kind of see what their colors are. So if you're watching this though and you have a different opinion than I do, that's very fair, and please let me know in the comments why you do have that different opinion. Perhaps there's something that I didn't unearth or misunderstood. Maybe you have more experience in the YouTube sphere and know that they were getting ahead of something. Anything. Let me know in the comments below. Let me know if you are even tempted to consider spending the $6 a month or $60 a year to go and watch the Watcher YouTube channel. Yeah, just fill me in on your opinions on this in the comments below. I hope you did enjoy this video. If you do like this style of video, dealing with internet drama, let me know any other things that you would like me to take a look at. I also do true crime. There's a whole pile of different things that I do here on the channel. Any requests are appreciated. You can reach out to the socials. There's a link in the description that shows a landing page that has some of the resources that I suggest you check out if you want, especially if you want to get into this field of study. It shows the story of how I got to be where I am and all of the study that I put into that as well. So if you would like to be able to check that out, it's all in the description of this video, and feel free to do that. But without further ado, that's all I've got for the day. My name is Logan, and you have been oh so awesome, as you always are, and I will see you in the next video. Cheers, guys.